The Matamata turtle is probably the weirdest turtle in the world. This thing comes from deep in the Amazon basin of South America, as well as the Orinoco basin, and it is an extremely dangerous creature. Don't let its bizarre appearance fool you. It has a leaf-shaped head and a flat shell, and it's very good at blending into the foliage that rests at the bottom of shallow streams, but it is an absolute killing machine. The Matamata turtle can grow to be roughly 20 inches in length, and they have an extra long neck that they use for reaching out and sucking up fish whenever they pass by. This is called suction feeding, and the Matamata turtle does this because it can't physically chew. It simply vacuums its prey into its mouth and then swallows them whole. So, maybe this turtle isn't that dangerous to humans, but it is still a menace to fish and other wildlife who make use of the streams and currents in South American jungles. The next time you're out for a swim in the ocean and you come upon a tiny little octopus with blue rings all over its body, don't even think about touching it. The blue-ringed octopus produces an incredibly potent neurotoxin known as tetrodotoxin, which can cause you some serious harm. According to the Ocean Conservatory, this is the type of neurotoxin that is also found in the infamous pufferfish. The venom is produced by bacteria in the octopus's salivary glands and is more toxic than any venom secreted by a land animal. The octopus typically uses its venom for hunting prey such as crabs and small fish. It pecks its prey with its beak, thereby inserting the venom, and then the octopus uses its beak to pick off little scraps of meat while its victim is still alive and helplessly paralysed. Yeah, this is a pretty brutal octopus. In humans, the bites from the blue-ringed octopus can be deadly. The venom will first block the nerve signals throughout your body, causing you to become completely numb. Other symptoms will soon follow, such as nausea, vision loss, and loss of motor skills. In the end, the venom will cause complete muscle paralysis, including the muscles you use to breathe, and you will eventually die. The only way to survive the bite from a blue-ringed octopus is if you're put on artificial respiration immediately. Let's move on to something a little more threatening. The Komodo dragon is the biggest and meanest dragon that we currently have on our planet. These things are huge, they have horrible attitudes, and they are basically mini Godzilla babies that are not afraid to attack humans. The best example of this comes from a 2017 report from the BBC when a tourist was attacked by a Komodo dragon whilst visiting Indonesia. Park rangers at the time said that the incident was the first to have happened in the last 5 years. Imagine being the only moron to get attacked by a Komodo dragon in 5 years. How embarrassing. Out of all the lizards in the world, Komodo dragons are the biggest, and they have extremely venomous bites. We used to think that they were venomous because of their saliva, but it turns out they have a venom gland in their mouth like the Gila monster. The fellow who was bitten was a 50-year-old guy from Singapore who had allegedly ignored the warnings about not getting too close to the dragons to take photographs. He was bitten on the leg while trying to take a picture and had to be rushed by a military speedboat to the nearest medical centre. This is less a story about a dangerous reptile and more a story about more people getting injured trying to take risky photographs for social media. It's basically a big +1 for evolution. Would you get close to a Komodo dragon, or any of these reptiles? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you're new here. We have lots more videos coming up. With a name like Stalker, you should already know not to touch it. This tiny little scorpion is also known as the Israeli desert scorpion. It's a dull yellow in colour, and can grow to be about 4.5 inches in length, which is pretty small for a scorpion. It has a thin tail and lives for around 6 years if nothing eats it. At the end of its long tail is a stinger that is typically coloured black. They can be found roaming around dry desert areas in the north of Africa and throughout the Middle East. They make their homes under stones and inside natural burrows, and they capture their prey by springing out of holes and pinching little animals with their little pinchy pincers. But what makes these Deathstalker scorpions particularly deadly is their poison. The Deathstalker scorpion has the strongest venom out of any scorpion on Earth. If you decided to touch one for some silly reason, it would probably sting you, and you would then convulse, slip into paralysis, and eventually die due to heart and respiratory failure. As a side note, you can typically tell how deadly a scorpion is by its size. Scorpions that are really big and have powerful pincers don't generally have deadly toxins, but something as tiny as the Deathstalker with little weak pincers is going to have much stronger poison, and this one does. Have you ever seen one of these? Let me know in the comments below. King cobras are ridiculously dangerous. There are some lizards on this list because lizards are cool and everyone likes talking about them, but even the mighty Komodo dragon has nothing on a king cobra. These snakes are feared for a very good reason. They have enough poison in their fangs to give you a fatal bite. One quick chomp from a king cobra will give you serious pain, problems with your vision, difficulty swallowing or speaking, respiratory failure, vomiting, horrendous pain in your abdomen, and even necrosis. The quickest you will die, according to the University of Michigan, is just 30 minutes. This makes the king cobra perhaps the worst pet on the planet. You can identify a king cobra easily enough because of its ridiculously huge size. These cobras can grow to be almost 20 feet in length. When they rise in the air to bite, you can immediately see the wide hood that gives the cobra its trademark look. Oh yeah, and there are actually many different kinds of cobras besides just the king cobra. For example, there is a spitting cobra that grows to be 9 feet and can spit venom in your face. You wouldn't normally think about touching a snail. Even the snails and slugs in your garden are pretty gross and pretty slimy. You're probably not picking them up and rubbing them on your face. However, if you are a weirdo who likes to play with snails, there is one snail you definitely want to stay away from. It's known as the cone snail, and they are the deadliest snail in the world. They harpoon their prey using a tooth-like spear that injects the victim with deadly toxins, paralysing them instantly. This allows the cone snail to slowly pull the unsuspecting fish or worm inside of its shell so that it can digest it whole. What's really interesting is that after the snail harpoons other animals with its weird tooth, the tooth is then discarded and instantly replaced by a new one. It's like having a gun that never runs out of bullets. It's believed that most cone snails travel with about 20 of these harpoon teeth locked and loaded at all times, but they can continue to make new ones. The deadliest of all 800 different species of cone snails is known as the cigarette snail, which is typically found in the Indo-Pacific region. The reason it's called a cigarette snail is because the toxin it delivers into your bloodstream is so powerful that you only have enough time to finish a single cigarette before you die from its attack. This should be a warning to any shell collector. Watch out for these deadly snails. And now for number 7, but first, let me know if you've ever encountered any of these animals, and what other animals you would like to see in future videos. And be sure to subscribe because we have lots more coming up. The saltwater crocodile is definitely a reptile you don't want to mess with. In fact, staring directly into the jaws of a crocodile would probably be the last thing you ever saw. Their powerful jaws are able to snap your bones like twigs. For many people, the possibility of being savaged by a crocodile is just part of daily life. However, crocodiles don't set out to hunt people specifically. The problem with crocodiles is that according to the BBC, anything that moves within close proximity to a crocodile is fair game. Not only do they hunt in the water, but they will wander out on land looking for food. If you happen to be a human close to a hungry crocodile, you are going to be seen as dinner. Just in Africa alone, there are a few hundred crocodile attacks on people every year. Of course, most of these take place in small communities and are not typically reported. You are unlikely to be attacked by a crocodile in the middle of a busy street. Between 1/3 and 1/2 of all these attacks proved fatal. And to be honest, you would probably be better off fighting a shark. This one should be pretty self-explanatory. You would have to be a complete nutjob to voluntarily touch a snake. It's estimated that somewhere between 1 million and 5 million people are bitten by snakes each year, with about 1/5 of bites resulting in death. Of course, that number is much lower than it was a few decades ago thanks to antivenoms, and there being less snakes in civilized places. But that doesn't mean you should go around stroking every snake you see, especially not the deadly boomslang snake. Unlike most poisonous snakes, like vipers that have their fangs at the front of their jaw, boomslang snakes have their fangs at the rear of their jaw. This would usually make it very difficult for them to sink their fangs deep into a person, but because the boomslang snake can open its mouth at almost a 180-degree angle when it's biting, it's able to sink its fangs deep into your flesh. And that's when the horrifying venom gets pumped into your veins. The good news is that you're probably not going to run into one of these green and black serpents anytime soon. They don't typically hang out in North America. When it comes to your fingers, the alligator snapping turtle is probably the most dangerous reptile. These turtles can't kill you, but if you are silly enough to try and pick one up, it could very well bite off your nose or bite off your finger. These reptiles are extremely large, with the largest one on record being a resident of the Shed Aquarium in Chicago and weighing nearly 250 pounds. According to Mental Floss, the biggest ever reported was 403 pounds and found in Kansas, but it was never properly confirmed. Alligator snapping turtles don't like people. They make it their business to stay clear of humans. The biggest problems arise on land when silly people try to snap photographs with them or pick them up and take them home. In 2014, a study discovered that there are in fact 3 different species of alligator snapping turtles, and each one of them has the power to bite off your nose. One more interesting fact is that these turtles have a special appendage inside their mouths that kind of looks like a pink worm, and they use it to attract fish directly into their jaws. Talk about the laziest hunting method ever. They literally draw their food directly into their faces. We're going to do something a little bit different for this one. It's time to talk about killer bees, also known as Africanized honeybees. They have a notorious reputation for being some of the most deadly and aggressive bees on the planet. However, according to a report by CNN, that is absolutely not the case. Killer bees are smaller than normal bees, they have less powerful venom, but they are still pretty aggressive. Yes, killer bees are the angriest bees in the world, but they're not actually going to murder you. At least, it's not likely. Where did killer bees come from? Well, in 1956, a Brazilian scientist imported African bees to South America. These bees eventually escaped, bred with European bees in the wild, and gave birth to a whole new species. And of course, they gradually began to spread. By 1985, they had reached Mexico, and by 2014, killer bees were all over the United States and Canada. Somewhere along the line, the Africanized honeybees became known as killer bees, but they don't actually do much killing. Still, this is a small animal that you don't want to touch. They are aggressive, and if you go poking around their hive, you are going to get a pretty nasty surprise. Unless you have an allergic reaction to bee stings, it will take about 1,000 stings from these bees to kill you. And while typical European bees are not going to come out with that kind of force, Africanized bees will. Over the past 50 years, Africanized honeybees, aka killer bees, have been responsible for several hundred human deaths. The Gila monster is definitely not as threatening as the Komodo dragon or the saltwater crocodile, but it is still a poisonous monster that is best avoided. In fact, there are two types of venomous lizards in North America, the Gila monster and the Mexican bearded lizard. Both of these reptiles have thick bodies, short and stubby limbs, and hang out in the deserts of the United States and Mexico. The Gila monster in particular is very attractive. It's quite colourful, but unfortunately they have a really bad attitude. They won't typically bite unless they are handled, but if you're stubborn enough to play with one, you could be in for a pretty miserable day. The Gila lizard bites with incredible strength, and once it clamps down on your limbs, it doesn't let go. Instead, the lizard will only bite harder, ripping apart all of your tissue while the toxins in its saliva drip into your wound. The most general symptoms of being bitten by a Gila monster include unstoppable sweating, a hard time breathing, severe nausea and vomiting, and dizziness. You probably won't die, but you might have an unfortunate allergic reaction which could spell disaster. The Tetsifly is one of the lesser known pests in the world, mainly due to it living primarily in Africa. This is not an insect you want to let crawl around on your skin. The bite from the Tetsifly can be deadly, but not for the same reason as mosquitoes or other flies. The Tetsifly is notorious for spreading something known as African sleeping sickness. There are two different types of African sleeping sickness, depending on which region you're in, and it's typically transmitted through the bite of one of these annoying flies. African sleeping sickness can be just as deadly as other diseases, such as malaria, except it takes upwards of 2 months for the patients to become deceased. If this fly bites you, the first sign of trouble is going to be a big red chancre sore. If you contract the disease, you will quickly begin suffering from a fever, brutal headaches, extreme fatigue, a swollen throat, aching joints, and a skin rash. As the disease persists, you will get progressively more confused, your personality may change, and as the infection invades your central nervous system, even more neurological problems will occur. If left untreated, you will probably die. The lesson of this story is to bring your insect repellents with you on your next trip to Africa. Don't let these flies touch you. The black mamba is one of the most dangerous reptiles in the world, and by many experts is considered to be the world's deadliest snake. They are found only in Africa and are luckily very shy creatures. They never seek out human interaction, making them less likely to bite you. But if you do get bit, their venom is 100% lethal. What's really interesting about the black mamba is that they are not actually black. These snakes are typically dark brown, with the only black part being the inside of their mouths. They are believed to cause the most snake-related deaths in all of southern Africa, with the most recent case being a South African judge who got bit by one and then died while travelling to Zambia. Unfortunately, the data for exactly how many attacks there are each year is limited, and this is mostly because the majority of deaths occur in rural parts of Africa where there is not much in terms of health infrastructure. The black mamba itself is born with about 2 drops of venom in each fang, but by the time it becomes an adult, it will have between 12 and 20 drops in each fang. How much does it take to kill a human? The answer is only 2 drops of venom. That means it delivers far more venom into your system than is needed to kill you, which is one of the reasons it is so dangerous. It should be no surprise that Brazil is home to some of the world's most terrifying small animals. In fact, I could go on and on about 1,000 different animals in the Brazilian jungles that you should never touch. But let's keep it simple. Our big no-no of today is the Brazilian wandering spider. It's also known as the banana spider, and it goes by the scientific name Phonutria, which is Greek for murderess. That's because this spider is one of the most venomous on Earth. Its bite can easily kill a human, and even with antivenom you might not be so lucky. In fact, the Guinness Book of World Records has the Brazilian wandering spider named as the most venomous spider on the planet. There are a total of 8 species of Brazilian wandering spider, and you can find all of them living in Brazil. There are others found throughout Latin America, all the way from Argentina up to Costa Rica, and you should not touch any of them. Do you know why they also call them banana spiders? It's because these are the sneaky spiders that are sometimes exported to Europe and North America in shipments of bananas. They love living in a big cluster of bananas, so be careful the next time you're at the grocery store shopping for fruits and veggies. The black cayman is kind of like a crocodile and kind of like an alligator. Well, it's more like an alligator. It's a unique animal that lives in the Amazon rainforest and is extremely elusive. Of course, this reptile is carnivorous, and it's not something you would want to mess with. There are 6 distinct species of the cayman, with the largest being the black cayman. This reptile can grow to be roughly 15 feet long and is identifiable by its dark black colour. It's native only to Central and South America and is way bigger than any alligators anywhere else in the world. They are fantastic swimmers, they are extremely sneaky, and the only natural predators they have in the wild are anacondas. That's not even really fair, as anacondas are really at the top of the food chain globally. Nobody messes with the anaconda. The only time a black cayman can be hunted is when it's a baby. Luckily, each female will lay up to 40 eggs at a time, so even if some are eaten, there are at least a few that will grow to be enormous enough that they could eat you for dinner. Rats are universally despised. There is no place on Earth where people welcome the presence of rats, especially sewer rats. These horrible little monsters have caused havoc on civilization time after time as the spreaders of disease. And for this reason alone, nobody should ever touch a rat, especially a sewer rat. If you have a clean rat at home in a cage, it probably isn't diseased, but if you find one scrounging through your garbage and decide to try and pet it, you might come down with a bad case of the Black Plague. That's right, these disgusting little rodents were primarily to blame for transmitting the bubonic plague that wiped out almost all of Europe several hundred years ago. This is because of the fleas that live on the rats. The fleas can jump between rats and humans, spreading infection everywhere they go. It's not actually the rat itself that infects people with diseases, it's the bug carried on their fur that transmits typhus, bubonic plague, and so much more. Then you have to worry about the urine and saliva of rats, which can get you sick with a viral infectious disease known as lymphocytic choriomeningitis. This is why it's not a good idea to ever touch a rat. Don't even touch anything that the rat has touched, as a single drop of urine, saliva or feces can get you so sick that you end up in hospital. If you find rats in your house, you better call an exterminator immediately. The king cobra may be the longest venomous snake in the world, but it really doesn't even compare to the glorious green anaconda. Green anacondas are the largest snakes on the planet without dispute. These things are massive. And yes, they can eat humans. It's been known to happen. One of the best tips to adhere to when travelling in the Amazon jungle is to never stand by yourself at the side of a river, as an anaconda can come from nowhere and eat you whole without a second thought. It's always recommended to stand with another person so you look too big to eat. Wherever you go near a big river in the jungle, you can be pretty certain there's an anaconda watching you. While we all know these snakes are extremely dangerous, what you might not know is that anacondas have invaded the United States of America. Thanks to people collecting these snakes as pets and then letting them loose, as well as the illegal animal trade, they have begun to thrive in the Florida Everglades. So, you might not need to go very far to find one. There is nothing sadder than seeing a poor stray cat meowing in the alley at night. It's just so sad, and it undoubtedly makes you want to go outside, pick up the stray cat, and bring it into your house to cuddle you all day. However, you should stay far away from stray cats, which are often feral. Feral cats are the mangiest of all the felines, and they typically hang out in dumpsters, around abandoned buildings, and in heavily wooded areas. They are almost always full of diseases, just like rats. There is a stiff difference between the fluffy house cat that purrs against your leg and the feral cat screeching from the dumpster at night. To make things worse, feral cats often hang out in something known as a feral cat colony, which is basically a big group of rabid cats that take over abandoned basements, decaying tenements, sewer systems, and everywhere else full of grossness. And just like rats, any feral cat is able to carry parasites and diseases that can be transmitted to you, a human. You might think petting a stray cat outside is showing it some love, but you'll definitely regret it when a week later you're infected with a horrible disease and sent to hospital. At the very least, you can get ringworm from hanging out with feral cats, and though it's not going to kill you, it's still pretty gross. If you don't live in an area heavily populated by bears, you have probably never thought twice about what to do if you stumble upon a baby bear. There is no arguing that bears are some of the most adorable, ferocious beasts still living on our planet. There is nothing cuter than a baby bear rolling through the grass near the side of a hiking trail. But don't you dare approach a baby bear, and don't even think about touching it. If you see a baby bear, chances are 100% that the mama bear is very close by and ready to eat your brains. Typically, bears are not aggressive. They will run away or do whatever they can to avoid a fight, and they won't actually eat your brains. But if you get the crazy idea to try and touch a bear's baby, you'll probably see the big one charging out of the woods like a very real beast. Bears can actually run at around 37 miles per hour. Even if you stopped on the side of the road to try and touch some baby bears you saw near the edge of the forest, you probably wouldn't have time to make it back to your car before the mama bear pounced. Have you ever had a run-in with one of these small but deadly animals? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. See you again soon for another amazing video.